This is PopXcast, where science fiction meets pop culture. We're a geek podcast for geek culture, so are you ready to get your geek on? Sit back, relax, step out of your TARDIS and warm up your chimichangas because this is PopXcast.
I'm David S. Dawson from the Intellectual Podcast, a show that spotlights creatives from all walks of life, part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other incredibly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You are listening to PopXcast, where science fiction meets pop culture.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
PopXcast.
Hasta la vista, baby.
By the power of Grayskull, Autobots, transform.
Excelsior!
Hey guys, welcome to PopXcast, where science fiction meets pop culture. I'm Austin Burke, your Appalachian geek at heart, and we would like to welcome everyone joining us live in the PopX.live chat room. Come hang out with us and join the conversation at PopXcast.com. If this is your first time tuning into PopX, the first 20 minutes or so, we run down the headlines since our last show and then dive into the show topic at the halfway point. Stick around because geeky goodness is coming your way. First off, I am joined by the host that knows the most. That is Joseph Burke. Joe, what's going on, man?
Oh, bro, I don't know about that. Those are some really big sneakers to fit in, penny loafers to fit into. You like penny?
Hi.
We're dialing it back to 1965, ladies and gentlemen.
No socks.
I know, right? So I'm your host, Joseph Burke, Central Florida's seasoned comic book nerd and retro enthusiast. Now, be sure to head on over to Google Play or iTunes after the show and click on that subscribe button. Catch up on some amazing content and shows from the PopX archive. And while you're there, we'd certainly appreciate it if you're showing us some love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review.
That's right. And I'm Lindsay Badger, your favorite geeky okie. And if you missed episode 97, where we broke down all the toy business and Toy Story review and more, make sure you go back over to our official website at popxcast.com for this and all the other great past shows from the PopX's collective archive of all the geeky goodness.
Indeed. And you know what? Before we dive into the news this week, ladies and gents, we have a really cool thing. We have our brother from another mother in Atlanta. He is back. We haven't talked to Mike since April of 2019. It has been far too long. Mike is back in the top corner there. He is going to be... Oh. Hi, Mike. It's good to see you, Mike.
We missed you,
Make
Mike.
it so, number one. So this is so cool. But you guys have a good weekend? Do you have how did your 4th of July go, everybody?
It was spectacular.
Yeah, burgers, dogs, and all the good fixing trimmings and all that.
All the tradition just crammed into 24 hours. It was fantastic. Swimming, dogs,
Swimming,
fireworks.
dogs, fireworks.
Yeah.
Burgers, brats.
You know what was special about this year's July 4th?
What was
Stranger Things, dude.
Oh,
yes!
I know.
Oh, we are going to break down all of that after Joe finishes watching it,
Well,
so that we can geek out with him too.
Okay. No, but we are actually going to do a Stranger Things episode. That's going to be part of our episode 99 in a couple of weeks. So we're going to be doing a 2-for-1 on episode 99, where we're going to be talking about Stranger Things season 3 and The Lion King. So we're really happy about that. So, but yeah, this is really cool. We had for 4th of July, we had some burgers and dogs. I had a couple friends over from church, and we had some apple pie.
Ooh.
You can't have the Americana without a little bit of apple pie.
But I have to ask you one question, Joe. Did you leave a slice out for Captain America?
I did leave a slice out for Captain America and a little spoon of vanilla ice cream just for him.
Oh, I'm sure he appreciated
Yes,
that.
Captain America got his, and you know what? He left me a note, and he said, "True believer." That's all he said. All right, so guys, with all that said and done, we're going to go ahead and roll into the headlines this week. Don't go nowhere. Headlines coming your way on PopXcast.
Extra, read all about it. This is PopX News, coming to you live right here on PopXcast. PopXcast.com.
Oh man, Mike is killing me with the gifts tonight. This is hilarious.
He is the meme master.
We're off to a fantastic start. You know what? I'm going to lead this one off this week. So with the next few months, once Avengers Endgame finally leaves theaters and hits store shelves, Marvel fans will finally be able to own the complete Infinity Saga of the MCU to watch anytime that they want. Now, the only major issue is that many of those movies, most notably Phase 1 films, were released in 4K on Blu-ray. Thankfully, that's going to change in the near future. As Marvel has big plans for its back catalog, we're going to remaster all of our films in 4K, Captain Marvel's executive producers Victoria Alonso said, and Jonathan Schwartz. Now, when asked about Marvel's plan for the other 4K releases, we're in the process of doing that, so it's all happening. So this isn't an especially surprising development, considering how popular the Marvel films have been in theaters in the past couple of years. So, and especially coming up on the streaming services with Disney Plus launching in November. So that's going to be really fun. And physical media as well. But this is the first confirmation from Marvel Studios that the movies that we all loved from Phase 1, 2, and especially for 3 will be all remastered in 4K for your viewing pleasure. This will also include, while Thor: Dark World would follow in September, the only movies left for Disney to remaster will be the Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, and Doctor Strange. So those haven't been upscaled into 4K just yet. No release dates have been announced, but with a seemingly long wait between movies on its way following Spider-Man Far From Home, Marvel will have plenty of months to fill in with the remastered classics. Anybody up on board in getting the full Infinity Marvel Cinematic Universe saga? Anybody?
You know,
don't everybody answer at one time. You know?
I want to, but here's the problem. When I get Disney Plus, I'm going to have access to all these movies anyway, and I want to see them 4K. Maybe like a Winter Soldier and an Infinity War, like the movies that I love the most.
Right.
But all of these, it's like Disney Plus, man. You can't beat that price.
Can't do it, man.
The digital copies are enticing. Physical is really out of style.
Yeah. Was there a first image on that, Mike? Was there like the cover on that? I didn't get to see the cover, but I'm really excited. Look at that.
That is so pretty.
It's glorious. I want it. Where's my credit card?
I want it now.
Take it. Take my money, you.
I want all of
the so I will definitely be pre-ordering this bad boy. Pretty excited for it. Probably one of my favorite Marvel movies ever made. And a huge effort across the board, and I'm excited for it. I really am, and I'm excited to see some of those old Phase 1 classics in 4K, like Iron Man and the original Thor. I mean, some of those, man, you got to think, some of those pretty cool, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I want to see Ragnarok with all of its bright colors.
Ragnarok.
That, because it's so artistically beautiful with all
Taika
of
Waititi, man. That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
All the planets have their own unique color spectrum of gloriousness that I just need to see.
It's interesting when asked, what was my favorite Marvel movie of all time? There's obviously it's going to be Endgame, duh. But you're not going to know. You didn't hear this from me, but Thor Ragnarok is definitely my number 2.
Actually, Doctor Strange would be really cool too, because it's got all those psychedelic scenes where all the world gets ripped apart and twisted.
That is actually Alex's favorite is Doctor Strange.
I'm a huge Strange fan, but
for 4K, so Madison likes Doctor Strange too?
Dude, that's her number 1 favorite standalone Marvel movie.
That's awesome.
Yes,
that's
my girls.
So legit, bro.
My girls.
Well, it's really cool though. Marvel's going to be doing us some service. We're going to be getting some really great content, even though that there's not going to be anything on the docks for about a year from Marvel Studios after Spider-Man Far From Home. It's just going to be a nice filler, especially for the holiday season as we approach that we're going to be able to get our hands on some pretty epic movies that have been fully remastered in 4K. So I'll probably will be dropping some money on these.
Yeah, they have a lot of time to kill.
They do. They have a lot of time. Movie. So I do want to say this too while we're on the topic of Marvel before Austin goes into the next one. I don't know if you guys knew. Did you hear the announcement about San Diego Comic-Con about Marvel entering into that? So they were not scheduled to be there this year. They were not scheduled to be there. And Kevin Feige, literally last minute, we're talking just a couple of weeks before this event, reserved Hall H with special guests that's not been announced. And they're supposed to be introducing some pretty big stuff.
What in the world would San Diego Comic-Con be without Marvel there?
Correct. You are correct.
Well, here's the thing, too, is all of these other studios have been dropping out. So when Feige saw that, I think originally they were going to do their own big special announcement of the next slate of Marvel movies. But when he saw that there's this giant opening at Comic-Con, he's like, we're going to do it there. So he just dropped the mic and said,
boom,
we're going to announce every single movie at Comic-Con.
Yeah, that would be kind of like Sony not being at, E3.
That would be kind of. Oh, I see what you did there.
That's true.
It was not very eventful.
It's true.
Moving on.
It's true. All right, also go for it.
It's true. Okay, so we move on to a completely different topic, but a sad one. So once a cultural touchstone, Mad Magazine is halting the publication of new content and vanishing from the newsstands. So the Similar Humor publication will no longer be available on newsstands after its August issue. After that, issues will be available only via comic book stores and subscriptions. After number 10 of its current volume will reprint earlier material with new covers. However, the magazine will continue to publish its end-of-year special books and special collections. The revered satirical publication was founded in 1952 as a comic book. Then in 1955, it switched to a magazine format. Former Mad editor Ali Gortz, who resigned last month, lamented that there will no longer be new content after issue number 10. Mad is an institution with such a rich history, Gortz tweeted. It informed just about every comedian and writer I, and probably you, look up to. I mean, this thing had books and shows, and I mean, literally, you can go and...
Mad TV birthed Jam and Carrey as we know it.
I mean, it really...
Was it Mad TV? No, I was in Living Cover. Never mind.
It was iconic, though, for what it kind of spawned, and so many comedians got their content from what Mad did, the satirical comedy. So, guys, what do you think about this kind of shutting down?
I am in shock right now. I mean, I know that print is dying, and it shows its toll. The electronic switchover has shown its toll on the printing industry in general. So it's not surprising news, but the fact that they're limiting it so much and they're not keeping it as a digital continuation, I'm kind of sad about that.
Well, I think they need to take a page from Marvel and DC and what they're doing. When you buy the actual product or something like that, there's a digital code that you can redeem. I think that if they went to a digital format, they can still be able to produce content, and there's options there to where they can withdraw the cost of actually printing and invest more money into multimedia features that will allow them to maybe download a Mad app and subscribe to feed and content there. There's a lot of options that I think what we're looking at here, though, we're looking at a company that has a lot of old school values, and they're not embracing a lot of the new stream media potential. And so I think when you have that, you're going to have what happens here is that Mad Magazine is actually pulling from the newsstands. It's very unfortunate because I remember I have many copies of Mad Magazine in my repertoire. One of my favorite covers actually is from 1989 when when Mad Magazine spoofed Batman, which was Michael Keaton's Batman. And he's on the front cover of that. I actually do own a copy of that. And I gotta echo what Luke says here in the chat. Spy versus Spy was one of my favorite strips.
Yes, that was really good. There's so many good, memorable skits that I remember just growing up loving.
Good.
And
good, funny humor and very satirical.
Very. It's just I've kind of lost touch with the industry, that product, but I just know that it's good quality stuff, and it always has been.
I'll tell you what, though, Cartoon Network did I think it was 2 or 3 season run of Mad come to life in animated form, and something like Spy versus Spy. It was very funny and very interesting. It got canceled after a while because kids just weren't picking up on it, but it was really good, and it showced a lot of their stuff. So go back and check that out if you get a chance.
I think I remember really that for a while. It was on Nickelodeon, wasn't it?
It was. I think it was Cartoon Network, but they canceled it very quick. So I was surprised.
Well, let's have a moment of silence for Alfred E. Newman. All righty. As we move on, Lindsay Badger.
It's so sad. Well, guys, on Wednesday, Robert Kirkman called it a wrap for the Walking Dead comic series. Wow. The 15-year saga telling what was labeled as the never-ending zombie story was abruptly finished with a shocking finale.
Wow.
On the heels of killing its lead character, Rick Grimes, only one triple-sized issue would come along to show fans the longtime readers how the remaining characters would end up. In the back of The Walking Dead issue 193, Kirkman replaced the typical letter hacks section with one long message for his readers. Knowing there will be questions and emotions, the series creator addressed his decision to conclude the book and acknowledge those who helped it become a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon that it has. Well, what do you guys? I mean, this is huge.
It is huge, and I think Austin will probably echo, and a lot of you guys will probably echo when I get ready to say this. On the heels of the zombie genre, there is some steam that is lacking in that area as of late. I mean, with superhero films on the rise, and I mean, come on. We're in a time where the Walking Dead television show, I think if I'm not mistaken, maybe the last season had some of the lowest ratings it's had in a long time. There's a decline in the interest because we're at 15 years. That's a long time. So we're on season 9.5 or 10 of Walking Dead right now, and so. Come on, I mean, it's just like it's 10 years of cinematic versus 15 years of comic book. That's a long time for a zombie genre.
If you look over, just pop culture in general and how the trends go, before zombies was huge, and it has been huge for a long time. Before that, it was vampires, everything.
Right.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer to sparkling vampires. I mean, everything in between. Now we're getting out. Now they've shifted to the zombie thing for the longest time. Now we're phasing out of that, and we've still has this really, really strong feed, like Joe was saying, of the superhero. But eventually, that's going to kind of fade out too, because people are going to get kind of tired of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's why AMC went with the whole idea. Let's pull Andrew Lincoln out of it. And I started to say Abraham Lincoln. Did you see what I did there?
Yeah.
Let's pull Andrew Lincoln out of it and give him 3 movies. Where he's not even now part of the show. It's just strange moves.
Even thinking before vampires, I think they were really into like the sci-fi space stuff. I mean, it's always been there, but there's like the ups and downs and waves of the different genres that poke their head up a little bit higher than the others.
Well, all hell superheroes is what I say.
Yes, we're gonna ride that superhero wave as long as it'll let us, right?
But it is sad though. I mean, Robert Kirkman literally has, by one book that was printed, I think less than 5,000 copies around the world. If you own Walking Dead issue number 1 first print, you're holding in your hand about a $15,000 comic book. So if you think about the limited run, because he printed so few, he didn't know how good it was going to be. And so gradually, as he was getting into like issue number 8, number 9, he started printing more and more copies of each as there was more demand. He's created an empire for himself. Not only has he become a very skillful writer and artist and a director, he's even on set of many of the shows in AMC that they film in Sonoya, Georgia. I can understand and appreciate 15 years is a long haul. It's time to maybe sit back, refocus, regroup, and maybe invent something fresh. And I understand as a creator, someone who creates and is a creative, I can understand that. I'm surprised he went at it as long as he did, because it's easy to burn out when you're doing something that long. And I respect his decision for bringing it to a close. I think finally we have closure on the saga. And, 193, that's just a weird number to leave it on. I'm just going to, can we go to 200 and call it? No, let's just end it at 193. Okay, all right.
It's crazy, too, how fast the show lost steam, too, because it was Game of Thrones level popular.
Yeah.
And then it felt like after a while, it just declined so rapidly, and people were just so, I think they're sick of the genre less than the show, right? The show dipped in quality, yes, but I heard the last season, while it had the lowest ratings, was one of the better, more recent seasons, but people aren't giving it a chance because they're sick of zombies.
They're turned out, man.
It's a tidal wave of moving on to the next big thing. I think we're seeing that's why superhero movies are so popular right now.
Correct. All right, moving on here. We got 2 more news segments, and we're going to get into this week's episode where we're talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. So let's move on in here. DC Comics announced that the company will rebrand in 2020. No kidding. Bringing all of its publishing content together to be organized and marketed under the DC brand. Now, this movie means at the end of the beloved Vertigo publishing imprint, Oh, Vertigo. That's their indie brand. So this is they're actually shaking a lot of things up here, as well as the recently launched DC Inc. and DC Creating, 3 age-specific labels: DC Kids, DC, and DC Black Label. Now that would absorb all of its existing imprints and focus on DC's publishing content around the characters and stories that evolve and mature along with the awareness and sensibilities of DC's readers. As a result of the new labeling strategy, DC will sunset the Vertigo publishing imprint at the end of the year, bringing it to a closure. So what we're seeing here is we're actually seeing some DC is probably feeling the repercussions of Marvel right now. They're feeling it not only in print but on screen. And so they're having to not only do a full in-house rebrand and refocus. I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing, Austin? What do you think about that?
All my mind keeps going back to right now is what they're doing on their streaming platform. And I know we're getting ready to talk about a story on Titans, but they're canceling Swamp Thing. There's rumors that they're canceling Doom Patrol, which would break my heart.
Yes.
But here's what I heard. So, and I'm talking strictly television, but I heard they're wanting to go the more CW route with their television shows, as in less dark, less adult, and more romantic kind of fun.
Stop.
Yeah.
What?
So that's why they're looking at canceling those 2 shows and keeping Titans going, because Titans kind of falls more in that category. It's like they don't know what they're doing, and I think this is why they're going through this rebrand, is because they want to change things up and make things more modern, because they're trying to keep up with what Marvel's doing in the movie universe right now. And to me, it just feels like they need new leadership. They need a Kevin Feige, their version of a Kevin Feige, to step in and say, stop what you're doing. Now, they did just sign that deal with Bad Robot. J.J. Abrams is now a huge part of Warner Brothers. So what if J.J. is your guy that steps in and says, hey, here's what you need to do with DC. Here's the route we go. I want to see that, because they need, and I'm just talking about the movie, not even the comics, which they're majorly rebranding as well. So DC, they're trying to find their path right now. They have a good basis on Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Shazam. They just need to get it together, big time.
And I agree with you. And cinematically, we've seen some flops from Warner Brothers, and it's not the first time that Warner Brothers Productions in DC has. Let me just say, Batman Forever. Can we just stop there and talk about one of the worst superhero films ever made? But even in that, it's almost like they're totally ignoring the source material and trying to make something that looks fun but isn't paying homage to the source material. So I don't know. And I'm watching this show. This is a really good time to bring this up. If you have Amazon Prime, there is a really fantastic documentary about this very topic that we're talking about. It's called The Rise of Superheroes. It's a 2-hour documentary. It's really great, and it goes back and it tells you about the old serials that they used to do in the movie theaters back in the 30s and 40s, and how you would pay like an extra 18 cents and you get to watch Shazam or Batman or Superman in the old 40s and 30s black and white. And so it brings it back to that point, but it also talks about some of the flops and follies that DC and Warner Brothers has had. So they hit it up really strong with the Donner's version of Superman. They hit it up really good with Tim Burton's version of Batman, but when Schumacher came in, he literally destroyed the entire franchise as we know it. Yep. And so you think about some of that. I think rebranding, it's kind of like what Marvel had done a few years back. If you remember, about 15 years ago, Marvel had filed bankruptcy. This is long before the X-Men was even out. Well, this may be even before X-Men. Yeah, this was early 90s, so we're talking 94, 95. Marvel filed bankruptcy, and that's when they sold all their subsidiaries. Marvel sold the rights to Fox of Fantastic Four and X-Men. They sold the rights of Spider-Man to Sony, etc., etc. So they can try to... Marvel then was focusing not only on their comic books, but they were trying to refocus on the branding of the cinematic. It worked for Marvel. Will it work for DC? That's the question. Sorry, that was a long rant. Dang.
No, that was a good rant. That was informational. I like
reach.
Well, I'm thinking about it, logistically, and my heart, my first superhero is always going to be Superman. Yeah. Because, when I was a child, I watched Christopher Reeve don the tights and became the man you would believe that a man could fly. That was the tagline at the bottom of the movie poster. And it's just an epic film altogether. And then you get into like some of the other ones that they did, and you're just like, what? What are you doing here? It's just like people at Warner Brothers. It's like left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And what we need is a Kevin Feige-esque individual behind Warner Brothers Media that is paying homage to the source material and doing these films right. And we wouldn't have a fourth director trying to come in on The Flash right now. I mean, seriously, this movie is failed from the start. It's failed before it even hits the film reel.
Joe, I feel your passion. I completely agree with you. I mean, I started, learning and completely knowing nothing about superheroes really until Christopher Reeve took on Superman, until Keaton took on Batman. Those two are in the same umbrella of greatness that, in our brains, in our memories, in our childhood, we hold DC up on a pedestal because of that very reason.
Right.
And whenever they are missing it, every try they do, everything falls short.
Let me stop you right there, Lindsay. Justice League.
Justice League. I mean, Aquaman was
That was
good.
rough, dude. That was a rough one.
Wonder Melon,
ladies and gentlemen. Wonder Melon is delicious in the summertime.
Little sun getting to me today. Wonder Woman was fantastic, and I look forward to see what they're doing with the next one. But aside from that, where is the consistency?
There isn't one.
We're needing a consistency.
They're just throwing out content to see what sticks.
They're just slapping that skinny
Nobody
up on the wall and see what's
asked for a Suicide Squad 2.
No. Nobody asked for the first one, to be honest.
True. Well, actually,
decided,
the first one,
try this, guys.
they could have actually done it really well.
Yeah.
But they gave us a turd.
Made a ton of money. So if it would have done well, it would have made all that money, and DC would be like partying right now, right? And here's another thing that I just want to throw in. So the director of Mission Impossible Fallout recently came on Twitter. The fantastic movie, one of the best ones of last year.
I loved Fallout.
Came on Twitter, dude. It's so good. Chris McQuarrie, and he said, I went to Warner Brothers and I pitched two ideas. One was a sequel to Man of Steel. One was a Green Lantern movie. And my ideas, he said, I feel stronger about that than I do any of the Mission Impossible movies that I've directed.
Wow.
And he's only directed greatness. And he said they shut him down immediately.
What?
Because it was too far out of their wheelhouse and too comic book.
Wait, didn't you tweet that?
Wait,
he tweeted it.
No, you tweeted. You retweeted it, didn't you?
I did. Well, here's all it was. He wasn't even like tweeting. He was just responding to a fan who asked him, "Would you ever direct a superhero movie?" And he's like,
"Actually, I did."
They shut me down.
Wow.
They shut me down. That's DC for you. There you go.
It's too comic booky is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Hello, what era are we in where we're all about the comic booky?
Marvel and Kevin Feige has stayed so true to the source material. It's ridiculous. You pick up a comic book and you read about Infinity War, then you pick up watch the movie. With the exclusion of some key players like Adam Warlock and the X-Men, it's pretty freaking spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, moving on here. We spent a little too much time on that one.
All right,
Austin Burke, round it out for us.
Well, I just mentioned we were going to talk about Titans. So after including Batman in a hallucination sequence in the season 1 finale, but only his back, it looks like Titans finally will bring the real Bruce Wayne to the DC universe ahead of the show's second season. A familiar face to TV fans has been cast as the Caped Crusader. Fresh off the series finale of Game of Thrones, Ian Glenn has been added to the Titans roster to portray Batman going forward.
Wow.
Glenn is his role as Jorah Mormont in Game of Thrones. As expected, given Glenn's slightly over age, this will be a much more experienced version of Bruce Wayne than we've seen in the past. The official character description is as follows. After decades of fighting crime as Batman, billionaire Bruce Wayne is just as driven to protect Gotham from evil as he was in his prime, needing to reconcile his relationship with Dick Grayson. The duo hopes to forge a new dynamic as Bruce tries to help his former sidekick and the Titans achieve success. I don't know about you guys, but I love this guy, and this could be cool.
This guy is one serious actor.
Oh my gosh, they are so lucky to land this guy.
I'm telling you,
I
dude.
hope that the writing is worth his value as an actor.
Okay.
I've always been hesitant because I'm like, an actor, you could have the best actor on the planet, and if you write it horribly, it's still gonna suck.
Wow. That's going to be huge because I think this is something that the fans have been asking for a long time. An older, aged Batman.
Grizzled.
Yes.
And I think, we got a little hint of that in Christopher Nolan's Chapter 3 of the Batman saga. Mm-hmm. We got a little hint of that coming out of retirement and doing his thing. But this is going to be literally like right out of the books of Frank Miller. This is going to be awesome. Yeah, bring it. That's what I say.
Man, dude, like
and you know
Game
what?
of
What sucks is I've not watched the first episode of Titans, so I need to get on board. How many episodes is in one season? Is it like 8 or 10?
I think it was like 13 to 15. Here's my thing about Titans. I enjoyed it while I was watching it, looking back on it and comparing it to Doom Patrol and Swamp Thing. Not as good as I liked it when I first saw it, but I do have a lot of faith in this season because I think they're going more in the dark direction, which this guy on the... That's the direction you got.
That's a good direction to go. Dang. What a good cast.
That's going to be a great
Well,
one.
you know, with all that said, we're at the official halfway point of the show, and man, we can just keep going on about some of this great news. And hats off to Mr. Mike Ippolito over in the bottom window for giving us some phenomenal news this week. Man, that's some good stuff. But we're going to transition over into the main segment of the show where we're talking about Spider-Man Far From Home. This is going to be pretty awesome, and we're going to go ahead and roll that spoiler alert warning. So if you have not seen Spider-Man Far From Home, well, beyond this point, you have been warned.
Danger. You are about to enter a PopX spoiler alert. Beyond this point, there is no return. You have been warned.
There you go, ladies and gents. You have been warned. So, coming off the heels of Avengers Endgame just a couple of months ago, and back in April, this is the first Marvel Cinematic film to actually showcase all of the world as we know it after the quote-unquote blip. And so this is going to be a phenomenal, I think we're going to be really rabbit-holing crazy on this particular discussion because there's just so, you can't discuss the first 15 minutes of this film without even talking about an Easter egg.
Yeah.
The whole film is a freaking Easter egg.
It is. It truly is.
And so what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be breaking it down, and we're going to be saving the meat and potatoes. And when we say the meat and potatoes, we're talking about the 2 end scene credits that everybody's buzzing about. We're going to be saving that for the last 10 minutes of the show, and we are going to be unpacking that. So you need to stay tuned, crank up your headphones, go grab some hot cocoa. It's summertime. If you still even do that, I don't even know.
Go grab you a slice of watermelon.
Go grab you something. A watermelon. Go grab some watermelon.
Yes, get some watermelon.
And, but so we all four have seen it, and we're all four going to share some points about it as well. And I'm going to open up, and then I think Mike might be sharing a little bit too, because Mike got to see it. I think I think last night he got to see it as well. So it'll be good to have him back on board as well. But I'm going to start this thing off. And then we're going to go with myself, Mike, Austin, and Lindsay. Is that cool?
Okay. Yep.
All right. So I think when I went in here, it's one of those films, Homecoming set a bar so high in terms of the world of Peter Parker, the teenage quirky kid in high school. And a lot of expectation was riding on this, and we saw the emotion and the impact of Tom Holland's acting in Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, the kid is brilliant when it comes to acting, and so he's bringing something to the table of Peter Parker that a lot of us haven't seen. We're so used to Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire that we've not seen this level of freshness in the cinematic universe, and I think with Marvel, casting Tom Holland was a great thing. So Far From Home, so we get Peter Parker and his team. They're talking about the blip. They're talking about everybody coming back. There's a really cool opening scene. It's the most horrible edited thing. It's a high school video. They're talking about, and the blip happened, and they're doing, and I will always love you. And it's Whitney Houston.
That was rough.
It
was rough.
It was hilarious. So we open up with some of the big actors, that paid the ultimate sacrifice in Endgame, like Black Widow, Tony Stark, Vision, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes into, there's scenes of them in the basketball court, and they just vanish. And then 5 years later, they're still in the basketball court, and then they just show up, and people's running in the middle of a basketball game, and the band's still playing like nothing never happened. Hilarious. It was so funny. So we see the world after the blip. We see that some of Peter's friends and schoolmates have now progressed 5 years older. They went from little skinny, scrawny teenagers to big, buff dudes. And so we're seeing this, and we found out that MJ and then Aunt May, we know that Happy, Of course, Tom Holland, Peter Parker, they were all part of the blip. They were all part of this thing. So now they're coming back and they're seeing a high school that's radically changed. A lot's happened in 5 years. Some of the students have already graduated. So they're picking up the pieces after Homecoming and after Avengers Endgame. And so I think for me it was really interesting. And I didn't really understand the whole premise of why are they going to Europe. It's a science trip. Okay, there's nothing science about going to see an opera or to see a masquerade ball or whatever. So I was just kind of sitting there trying to figure all of that out. But at the same time, we get Mysterio, and here comes this character who, at the first of the movie, there's so many elements in this movie that was reminding me of Iron Man 3, where you see the Mandarin and you see Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin. And they say that I am. You see Ben, but then you find out he is just a pawn and that he's not the real Mandarin. Kind of reminded me of that a little bit. That Mysterio was his persona was a pawn to trick everybody, but behind the scenes he's just a dude in a 3D jumpsuit.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that take, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I did. Iron Man 3 was kind of like, they wasted an amazing character opportunity there. They didn't in this one. I think they may have learned from their mistakes, and they actually capitalized on it. And I thought that Jake Gyllenhaal was perfectly cast as the role of Mysterio. I thought that he embodied every part of Quentin Beck and using modern technology. In the comic books, he would just use smoke and mirrors and some... See, Quentin Beck was a magician, if you didn't know that. We should do an origin story on Quentin Beck. But he was a magician gone rogue, and he used a lot of those tactics and techniques to be able to trick Spider-Man. Smoke and mirrors and gas and stuff to just infiltrate his mind. Think of the Joker, but just in a Marvel version. And so in this episode, though, in this particular version of Mysterio, he's using holographic projectors and modern tech that we find out was actually in Iron Man 3, which is why I talked about Iron Man 3, which was BARF. And BARF was this technological system that was advanced for holographic technology. So that, given all of that information, I freaking loved the story. I watched it for the third time last night, and the third time I'm sitting there really dissecting and listening to dialogue and listening to things and picking up on a little nuance and picking up on Fury and seeing what's going on there, and I really loved it. And with that said, I'm going to pass the mic over to my brother from another mother in Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Mike Ippolito. Mike, welcome back to PopXcast, bro. I haven't seen you.
Here I am.
Oh my God, you complete me.
It's been a minute.
You complete me. Okay.
Complete me.
So what do you think about Spidey, man?
Oh, I love this movie. It was just, I would have to go back and see it again because it was just overwhelming the first time.
Right.
Basically, I just want to kind of back up. I don't know if anybody saw the re-release of Endgame.
I did not see the re-release. No.
Okay, well, I'm just going to kind of throw it out there.
Go ahead.
The bonus footage at the end of Endgame is the first minute and a half of Spider-Man.
Okay.
Which is kind of like, you kind of like expected a little bit more. I mean, you got a little bit more out of it. There was a Stan Lee tribute, but I didn't expect them to show the exact, first like minute and a half to 2 minutes of the opening of Spider-Man. So that was, I thought it could have been a little bit better. But anyway, we're not talking about that. But just the opening, just kind of something I caught at the beginning. I don't know if it's just something I was just looking at, didn't think much of at first. When the Sony logo came up, since we know that Spider-Man's part of the Sony side, and then they actually put in the full Marvel Studios. Usually when they like an X-Men or I think the first Spider-Man, it was like in association with Marvel.
I didn't pick up on that. You're right.
If they've kind of stepped up the agreement a little bit with Sony. Cool. So that was just
that's a really good pull, Mike, because that's something we're so used to seeing the Marvel Studios logo. It just literally blew right over me. If you go back and watch Homecoming, it says Sony in association with Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Okay.
Yes, I was wondering if they stepped up their agreement with Sony, which I hope they did.
Bring on Venom. That's what I say.
Yeah, exactly. But this movie, I mean, it was just It was a bit overwhelming. I actually got to see it in Dolby Cinema.
Oh,
so it kind of
you're lucky.
Enhances, the movie a little bit, and I mean, it was Tom Holland. You just can't beat it. I mean, he's my favorite Spider-Man out of all of them.
Right.
I just hope they keep going with him, and like you said, Jake Gyllenhaal. He was perfectly cast. And,
I agree.
to go back and to throw back, I'm just kind of going a little all over the place, but
yeah,
where they threw back to the Doctor in Iron Man 1, where he's arguing with Obadiah, that's really,
yeah,
throwing it back, to the original
that
first
was,
Iron Man.
yeah,
But it was that was pretty cool, and I knew Jake Gyllenhaal was going to be the villain in this, but I didn't expect the kind of visuals and the kind of special effects. And I mean, it was towards about the movie where he was going back, the middle of the movie where he goes to meet Nick Fury, and it ends up being like an illusion. He's being attacked by himself. I mean, it became like, especially in the theater, in the Dolby Cinema, the sounds were circling around, and it just became like almost like trippy, like Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix trippy.
wow.
After a while,
I would say so with the surround sound and all the stuff he's doing. I bet. I mean, they tried to mimic that in a 2D non-digital Dolby format in my cinema, but I couldn't imagine, like, what is it, like, how many, like 100 speakers surrounding you?
I think it's like 200 something.
Oh,
like
that's
that.
Ridiculous.
But
my gosh.
But, the story was great. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I loved everything about it. And I walked out of it and I'm going, yeah, this is right up there with Endgame.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. How did you feel about Jake Gyllenhaal's performance as Mysterio? Did you feel that was a good call?
I think he did a great job. I mean, sometimes you feel like they're a little dry or whatever, but I mean, he was all over and he killed it. And I thought it was great.
Yeah, same here, man.
I
What was it? Was there a moment?
Was
Was there a moment, Mike, for you that just literally jumped out at you? It's like, wow, that just happened.
Probably when they revealed that it was all an illusion, like when he's sitting there with, in the bar, and then, Peter Parker leaves, and then he puts the glasses on, and the whole thing just kind of vanishes.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then I'm going, okay, well, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
That was awesome. And it just goes
Just
to
to
show
come
you.
up with, even in a script, to come up with that kind of idea and to visually put that on screen was just, overwhelming to see that. Just the concept of everything 3D and to fool everybody. I thought it was just the whole great concept of it.
I agree. And, I think for Kevin Feige and team to really pull from that source material, they went all the way back to Iron Man 1 on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some crazy pull right there, dude. And it was insane. I was like, holy cow, that's the dude from Iron Man 1. What?
Yeah.
And it was just
And then
amazing.
to find out it was Peter Billingsley, that kind of threw me for a loop too.
Yeah. Oh,
I never
yeah, Peter
expected
Billingsley,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was really fantastic, and Mike, I'm glad you got to see it in Dolby. I'm a little jelly at the moment, but I will get through that. Cool, man. So we're going to hop down. Actually, let's go to Lindsay Badger next, because I want Austin to wrap it up. I want to hear what Lindsay, because it's fresh in your head right now.
Finale. It is fresh in my head. We went to go see it last night, so okay. Let's just say, I know we've said it again a million times before. We're going to say it again. I love Tom Holland.
Oh, God, who doesn't? Great cast.
Tom makes a fantastic Spider-Man. I know his gymnast abilities and just his age and his maturity just overall nails this character even before you start reading the script. So he still is, as he's just been a fantastic choice. And his battle with trying to fill the shoes of Iron Man. He has like this, he feels like it's necessary for him to do this, even though nobody has necessarily come out right and said, okay, you're in charge now. He just kind of has this feeling that the baton has been passed to him before,
but he's not ready
he even
for it.
Gets the glasses, and he's so fearful of it that he doesn't even know how to approach it. He's like, dude, all I want to do is be a kid. I don't want to be a superhero. I didn't ask for this. I don't want any of it. And he that's basically what this movie is him coming to the realization that even if he doesn't want it, it's not necessarily a choice. It's kind of a duty.
The responsibility is on his shoulders.
It's the responsibility of him having these special powers
Good
and the experience
pull,
that he
Lindsay.
has, and all of this powerful, like, growing and coming of age underlying message that travels from beginning to end, and you see him grow immensely.
Yeah.
As you go through this journey, and it's adorable watching him, get flustered around MJ and all this other stuff, and I don't know how I feel about MJ. just because, and I think it's cool that she knows that he's Spider-Man now, but she was kind of like,
well, it took him 30 years to reveal himself to MJ in the comics, so I'm just like,
well, she was just kind of snotty.
Well,
throughout the whole movie.
That's how I felt about her in the last
She was
movie.
kind of snotty. I mean, I felt that way the last movie, and then she was snotty through the whole entire movie until like the very end, whenever she was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I know that you're Spider-Man," and then, "Oh yeah, I'm allowed to like you now because I know you're Spider-Man."
yeah.
It's like,
how do you feel about Zendaya as cast for MJ?
I think that she would be okay. I just think that the writers wrote her a little too
weird,
a little brash, I think would be a good word to use. I think now that they've kind of let the cat out of the bag per se, and can move past the awkwardness, that they're going to have a better chemistry storyline wise that I think will be nice. Jake, we've got to talk about Jakey boy. Jake nailed it.
Yes, he did.
Nailed
that
it. Now,
costume.
I know,
my gosh, that costume.
the costume was fantastic.
Beautiful.
Now, I know whenever we were first originally talking about Spider-Man and that we found out that Mysterio was going to be the bad guy, and I was like, okay, give me a quick, like 30-second rundown of what Mysterio is, what he's all about. And so you kind of filled me in on the nerdness. And then I was like, I think this was right after the trailer had come out, and I was like, all those monsters are fake. Every single one.
Oh yeah, you can figure that out.
I was like, every single one of those. That's just a bunch of rubbish.
Right.
And sure enough, it was all the smoke and all the mirrors. Now the question I have is about the multiverse conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If Jake is fake and not from the universe or multiverse or any kind of other verse, and yet Fury is standing there, and I'm assuming it's fake Fury, is standing there.
We'll talk about that in a
him,
moment. Yes.
Yeah, we will. Explaining to him about the multiverse, and then the Spider-Man's like, super geeked out, went super nerd mode about multiverses and physics and quantum blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now we know, being the comic book nerds that we are, that there is such thing as a multiverse, but was Jake lying? He never left Earth.
That's very true, and I think Jake.
Sorry, Mysterio. Let's just.
Well, no, Mysterio, Quentin Beck. Quentin Beck.
Yes, Quentin Beck.
Well, here's something that it's really interesting, and you bring up a really good point, and I want to address the first point before I go to this one.
Okay.
I love your idea how you talked about Spider-Man. You nailed it on the head. Spider-Man coming into his own, assuming the responsibility role after Stark's death. I loved your take on that.
Yes.
So that was really good. That's something that if you don't look closely, it's very easy to overlook, because this movie is not just a movie about Spider-Man fighting Mysterio. It's a movie about Spider-Man coming into his own as a leader and an Avenger.
Yes.
And that's really good. Now, with Jake Gyllenhaal, I think the question is, you got to remember, he was an employee of Stark Industries. So he's bound. I mean, he's right up there with Hank Pym, Tony Stark.
So he knows all the information.
He probably knows enough of the lingo to probably conjure up a really believable story. Right. But in all actuality, did Thanos really open up a portal to other multiverses when he did the snap, or when Hulk did the snap, or when Tony did the snap?
Well, and that's 5 years sans snap,
right?
Too.
So we don't really know what opened up. We don't really know the ramifications of that, or even if there will be a multiverse in this realm.
There's a whole lot of questions.
A lot of questions. That might be something for Guardians 3. That might be something for Captain Marvel 2, or even Doctor Strange 2, for them to explore the expansive multiverse.
I have a feeling that in the next couple of movies, at least in this, I know this is opening up the next phase of the Marvel movies. I have a feeling we're going to come back and reference that moment.
Probably.
In future movies, as being like, remember whenever they were talking about? Yeah, this is going to be one of those movies. So just put a bookmark on it. We're going to come back to that. I'm going to finish up with the moment that stood out to me the most. Now, there was a lot of really cool things going on. There was a lot of really great graphics, and the hologram awesomeness, thumbs up to that. But the moment that stood out the most to me was when he was on the jet with Happy. When he
was emotional.
He literally looks like Tony Stark doing all of
with the hand thing, and
building his suit. That right there made me want to tear up and be like, I love you 3000 Tom Holland right now.
That was a very, for me, that was fan glory.
that was the moment for me in this entire movie.
Well, but Happy put him. He's like,
Misty.
"Oh, don't get misty." But you think about it, though. I mean, he's like, Happy was like, "This, you have it. This is all on your shoulders. What are you going to do? Your friends are going to die. There's a lot of things that can happen. What are you going to do, Spider-Man?"
Yeah, he's like, I know you don't want to do anything and that you're scared, but they've all turned to look to you, and now it's time to decide. And then that kind of made him pony up and, suck it up and.
And it was in that moment we
saw
saw him getting comfortable with the Edith tech.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want that. Let's amplify that times 10. Let's do this. I don't want. And automatically the light bulb clicked on, and Spider-Man became a scientific.
That's the turn point of the character right there.
That's when Spider-Man Tom Holland became Spider-Man.
Yes.
Austin Burke.
Yeah.
You're up, man.
Jumping off that point, I think Happy's had some of the best moments in the MCU. Just his face, when it zoomed in on his face when Peter was doing that, just in his eyes, you can see the emotion.
Love.
And one of my favorite moments in Endgame was when she's talking to him about a cheeseburger, and he's trying to answer her, and he stumbles upon his words, and he goes, and he looks over to the side, and he has like a tear in his eye. Oh my God! Every time I watch that movie, I'm like, freaking Jon Favreau is one of the best. Like,
I love Jon Favreau.
Oh my God, he's so good. But that's a great point. I mean, this movie's full of. Here's what I love about this film, right? You have such a predictable premise because well, not everybody knew. I had some comments in my YouTube video. And we didn't know Mysterio was going to be a villain. Everybody knows Mysterio is going to be a villain.
Hello.
If you've read a comic book.
Exactly. It's not the destination with that. It's all about the journey. It's about the execution. And I think the way that they went about that in that scene in the bar, I thought was just so brilliant. Now, it was a very, we're going to shout out exposition at the audience and literally describe the entire plan. So in a lot of cases, that doesn't work because it comes off as bad writing. But with this case, he's not shouting it out to the hero. He's not shouting it out to the audience. He's shouting it out to his team, and they're celebrating what they just did, what they just accomplished, and then they're hearkening back to all of the other movies in the MCU. I've never seen anything like that before, right?
It was interesting.
An expositional scene that works on this level because it's one of my favorite moments in the movie, and it all comes down to the casting of Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, without Jake Gyllenhaal, what would that scene have been? He is amazing. He's always been one of my favorite actors, and when he got cast as Mysterio, I was like, he's going to kill it. He was perfect. And he was perfect. He was awesome. Incredible in this movie. And just every single time he popped up on screen, I'm like, I want a movie just about Mysterio. Now, when it comes to the end of the movie when he was killed off, and Joe, I know we talked about that, I thought his death was a little bit quick.
I did
too.
too.
Of my with the movie because we don't really know. And now, Joe, I know this is another thing we talked about. Thinking back on it, the more I think about it, the more I do think he's actually dead. Originally, I didn't. And I told you, Joe, that I thought he was still alive. But now that I think about Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor, is he going to sign on more than one movie because he's a very indie actor? He's a very independent film lover. Yeah. And if you've seen the behind-the-scenes things, he doesn't like comic books.
No. Well, and also he's not a super. He doesn't have superpowers. He's just a smoke and
mirrors
dude.
He's a normal guy. Yeah.
He's just a guy who got shot.
He's basically, he's basically creating a mystique about himself that's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of my kind of, and I do have a few critiques here, very minor, by the way, but just because I've praised this movie enough. The first third, I don't think was as funny as Homecoming was. I thought the pacing was better in that movie when whatever happens, and it starts to kick in. Then I started loving the movie. And here's a question I have that's probably a stupid nitpick, but out of everyone involved with that entire situation, I know it wasn't the actual Nick Fury, but how did no one just run a simple facial scan of Quentin Beck and not realize he worked for Tony Stark? Like,
Thank you.
Or a Google search, or just, does this guy exist in art? Because literally all you had to do was Google his name, and he works
to contradict that, no one had that tech at the time other than Nick Fury, which was not Nick Fury. And so that Nick Fury didn't know, nor had the receipt. And Maria, is it Maria?
Maria Hill.
She did not have access to that tech as well because they were Skrulls and they didn't understand or perceive. Now, could have Tom Holland have easily have done it? Probably, but Tom Holland took Nick Fury's word about this is a cataclysmic event, there's a multiverse, And Nick Fury was, Skrull Fury was actually gullible to believe a cataclysmic event. And why weren't the Avengers called? Probably because the real Nick Fury knew it was a fake.
And the Avengers might be off doing something else that we might.
We're going to be talking about that here in a minute. But go ahead there, man. You got anything else?
So what I loved about this as well is that they didn't go the magic route with Mysterio. They used what 2019 would use, and that's the AI technology, harkening everything back to Barf, which I thought was one of the best things about the movie. And then talking about MJ, I'm with you, Lindsay. In the last movie, I thought MJ was a bit brash, and she just didn't feel like, not even Mary Jane. Like, I'm okay if they changed the character of Mary Jane, but she wasn't striding. I actually kind of turned on her in this movie. About halfway through, at the beginning, it was kind of the same. But when she started to get that romantic, like those gestures and their conversations, and especially that last conversation that they had, I'm like, I think I turned on.
She started warming up a little bit.
Yeah.
I warmed up to her, and she slowly grew on me. And I think it's a character that, of course, Peter Parker's not here when Spider-Man shows up and they're on a field trip in the first one. Like, duh, he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, of course, I think we're living in a day and age when secret identities are going to start going away in superhero movies.
You know, you think let's pull it back for a second and talk about Michelle Jones, aka MJ, or Elizabeth, or whatever you want to call it. She is such a stereotype for today's modern girl that's in school. A very introverted girl who doesn't talk a lot, doesn't say a lot. She's probably coming from a very disrupted home life. And so she has figured out her own quirks that help her get through her day. And, you know, when you peel it back in that, it's a really a intelligent take on today's modern girl as she goes through school. I mean, you look at the stats, you look at the reports, and you see a lot of girls today are troubled. They're finding their value and worth in things like Instagram and Twitter and how many likes can I get because I did a pretty pose at the beach. MJ is the exact opposite of that. She's an introvert. She dresses and her mannerisms and even the way she portrays herself, totally opposite of what today's society girl would be. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I think when you look at that, and I think a lot of us can probably at some point relate to MJ because at some point in our life when we were in school, we were kind of the introverted one. We didn't want to talk to anybody, and we had relationship issues where we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And I can understand it, but at the same time, I think enough is enough with the quirks. And I think hopefully by the end of Far From Home, we've seen the end of the crazy, weird, interjectory Mary Jane. So, Mary Jane, I mean MJ, Michelle Jones. I'm so used to saying.
Did it bother you guys how quickly he handed over the glasses? Because it really kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, no, not really, because
I mean, I know he's the innocent kid that doesn't know better, and he's playing that role. But that was with his experience.
Let me tackle that for you. I think when you're looking at the naiveness of Peter Parker, and his willing to be a kid and not assume responsibility and easily pass it off. Yeah. In his mind, he created a scenario where if Tony Stark gave me this, then he assumed responsibility that I will give this to the person that's most likely. Well, the person that was kind of filling that gap at the moment was Quentin Beck. And Quentin Beck turned out to be nothing more than just a dude that knew smart holographic technology. And so was it naive? Is he a teenager? He's not going to make the right decisions. He's not going to make the decision that's going to land home the movie. He's going to fail. And it's going to epically come back and bite him in the butt. And it did, and we saw that all come to fruition. So, yeah, you know, it is what it is. But you got to remember, we're looking at this from the lens of we all read comics. We know, we're in the know. We know what to expect. But I will say this, sitting in the theater with my wife last night, she has never read a Spider-Man comic where Mysterio's in it. And she said, and I heard her to the right of me, and she's like, yeah, give him the glasses because he's the man. He's going to assume the role. And I'm sitting there like,
oh no.
Wow. But she didn't know.
Yeah. Wow.
She didn't know because she didn't know the source. We're all blessed because we get to know the source material. My wife reads Harry Potter, not Marvel Comics. Right. So there you go.
I think it would have maybe benefited if he would have had more than 3 conversations with him. Like,
it was so
why not Bruce? Why not Doctor Strange? Why not someone that I fought next to as opposed to this guy?
Yeah.
But it's integral to the plot too, because if you wouldn't have done that, where's the movie? You
Right.
know, it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
Well, to advocate, or to devil's advocate that thought, he was picked and approved by Fury, so that
Yeah.
kind of gave green
Skull
light.
Fury.
true.
Skull Fury. Yes, it was
Yeah,
Skrull
Skrull
Fury.
Fury.
But
Yeah.
at the time, Peter didn't know that. So that's
He
kind of
still
like the
doesn't know
background
that.
check. No, he still doesn't know that. So that would be kind of the green light of good guy, I
Right.
guess, the
Right.
label that kind of eases all of the confusion there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just had to bring that up because I was just like, really,
Right.
dude?
Well, let's go ahead and we're right at the top of the hour here, and I want to make sure that we can talk about two more things. And that's those end scene credits, the meat and potatoes, as we referred to about 20 minutes ago. So as we, the first animated credits roll, and we see a really cool scene with Peter Parker and MJ flying through Manhattan. And did anybody catch where it was that he picked her up at? The bridge at Grand Central Terminal, which was the fighting place of the Avengers 1?
Oh.
Did anybody pick up? Did you notice?
I did.
Did you notice at the front there was construction signs because of all the damage that was done?
Oh, no.
You're welcome.
Really cool.
So it was really cool. And then right at the end of that, he drops her off, and he's in this, I don't know if it's Times Square or something, but he's at this where there's a big screen on the side of a building. Yeah. Then all of a sudden breaking news comes in, and we're like, whoa, what's getting ready to go on here? And one of the news reporters says, from one of our sources at the Daily Bugle, then all of a sudden here's J.K. Simmons. Well, I'm Peter Parker. Oh my God. Me and Austin were at the media premiere for this, and our theater erupted. So, yeah, there's that.
My theater went nuts. And we just had a conversation right before that. Joe and I literally standing in line waiting to get into the movie. You think J.K. said, nah, I mean, he's perfect, but they're not going to get him back. We're both sitting there, and
right.
Our minds are just exploding in the theater. And I love how they played him as an Alex Jones type. He's not, because newspapers, they're a dying business. He's this crazy internet guy. And he has his own show. It's a perfect change to his character, and I loved it. What a wonderful Easter egg. That was amazing.
And the fact that he could come back as J. Jonah Jameson in the future franchise. Oh, my God.
Here's what I was... What if, how they did that series with that girl for a long time? It was on Marvel.com. It was the girl from the first Iron Man. She was always reporting on news from the Avengers. It was like a short web series.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jonah Jameson, short web series as an Alex Jones type, just talking about crazy things. The Avengers came in today. Like, Marvel, get on this, man.
Yeah.
Because you have to keep him in the loop. He is incredible.
I think J.K. Simmons is such a beast when it comes to being the role of J. Jonah Jameson. It's like a marriage of two roles perfectly. He was born to play J. Jonah. Yeah.
Well, and in that cutscene too, before he picked up MJ, he was like flying through and taking selfies and all that. Did that not remind you of the video game just a little bit?
A little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the backpack and the selfie. Yeah, it was.
It
just
reminded
like,
me of the Spider-Man PlayStation game.
Totally
You're right.
throwback.
And at the end of that cutscene, let's talk about that. Spider-Man's on the pole, and they hear this, and all of a sudden, J. Jonah Jameson announces to the world, and he sees footage that Quentin Beck recorded before he died, allegedly. That we don't have closure on that yet, so I don't know 100%. He says, oh, and by the way, Spider-Man is Peter Parker. This broadcast went globally worldwide.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So, wow.
I think he was the last Avenger to not be publicly known as his regular identity.
Well, I guess. I don't know. It's just really, it throws it out in such a dynamic. You're just like, what in the world just happened? And I kept thinking about this. I thought about this last night too. Let's go back to Spider-Man Homecoming when Vulture goes to jail. Scorpion, he's the guy that's got the Scorpion tattoo, asks Toombs several times, I know you know the name of that guy. What's the name of that guy? Because I want to go get him. What's the name of that guy? And Toombs is like, I don't know. He's just a kid.
Yeah, he's just a kid. I don't know.
So now this news flash comes out. I think there's going to be some fuel for Scorpion to come out.
Poor Peter. He's got a lot of stuff coming his way.
So they're setting it up for 3. Now, so with that, Austin, do you have anything else you want to add for the first end scene credit?
this is new territory. We've never been this route with Spider-Man before, and I
Mm-hmm.
like where they're going. I think you're right, Joe. I think the next movie could have I think the next movie will have Scorpion, no doubt, just because of that end credit scene. I also think this would be an interesting way to bring Kraven in, because we know that Kraven's ultimate goal is to hunt down Spider-Man. And now that he knows, along with the rest of the world, who Spider-Man is, this would be a great opportunity to have a Scorpion, Kraven, the first villain, the second villain duo in the next movie. I would love to see that. But what a great thing to set up.
Yeah.
Awesome scene.
Or, I mean, there's so many possibilities, and there's rumors, if you're floating around the rumors, that the Avengers building was purchased by Osborn Corporation. So we don't know that, per se. This is all hypothetical. Some rumors saying that the Avengers building was purchased by Fantastic Four Baxter building. So we don't know, but there's a lot of possibility for Green Goblin, for Hobgoblin, for Otto Octavius, Electro. Electro's already in Homecoming. He's already there. And Scorpion and Vulture. But the thing about it is Mysterio is not part of the Sinister Six now, so they're going to have to find a substitute if Quentin Beck is dead. So let's talk about the second in-scene spoiler. And I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this. So we see Fury and Maria Hill in the car, and all of a sudden, and Fury's playing with his eye patch. How many times?
He never does. Ever.
Never. So how many times have you seen Fury play with his eye patch? That never happens in any of the films. He's very, very stoic. He's very demanding, and he gives all the orders. He's never fiddling with an eye patch. So all of a sudden, Maria Hill changes into a Skrull. All right, and then he looks over and he changes into the Skrull, and we learn it is Teos from Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and I was like,
right. Now, this harkens back to Avengers Endgame. When Tom Holland comes back after the snap in his high school, we have that character in the background as the principal welcoming kids back to high school. Fast forward to Spider-Man Far From Home, Talos is now Nick Fury, and he's been Nick Fury the whole time. Now, before I unpack the rest of this story and some of my own research that I've done, Austin, what did you think about... And then we see Nick Fury, he's on this ship with a green screen version of a beach, sipping on a pina colada, and he gets up and he walks out, and it's just a screen in a room, and he's on this massive ship somewhere that we have no idea where he's at, and there's Skrulls walking around and working in the background, and we see these vessels, these massive ships that I guess are Skrull ships, and this is a massive floating fortress in a galaxy we don't even know about. And he's like, where's my shoes? I need my shoes. And then it cuts. So, having known... Austin, what are your first impressions on that?
Well, I mean, Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, he's one of the best in the business. So we knew he'd come back eventually. And as soon as that thing popped up from Endgame, I'm like, yeah, he'll definitely be back. When will he be back? I mean, nobody expected him to be Nick Fury. But now you go back and you look at the context clues and things that may have happened in other movies. And Joe, you'll talk about that. It makes a lot of sense. But I love how they're taking S.H.I.E.L.D. to a galactic level and doing S.W.O.R.D. Not confirmed, but my theory is that they're going to do S.W.O.R.D., which is basically S.H.I.E.L.D. in space, because we know the MCU is going galactic.
Yes.
Except for like a Spider-Man or a Black Panther, which they'll hold Earth for the time being, but I can't wait to see where the scene goes. I think it could bring in the next Captain Marvel, maybe tell us where the Avengers are right now, the ones out in space. So there's a lot of possibilities.
And if you guys don't know, S.W.O.R.D., we know S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Because we've seen S.H.I.E.L.D. Sentinel, World Observation and Response Department.
Oh, baby.
Sentinel.
It sounds so governmental.
Sentinel. Think about that. When was the last time you heard the word Sentinel?
A little bit of Fox, X-Men.
That guy right there. Look at that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm not saying that this word play is all that is, but it's really interesting. So Fury, the real Fury, has been up there all this time, probably. So I'm going to talk about this really quick, and then we're going to kind of start wrapping things up here. But Sean Hogney was talking about Secret Invasion, possibly. But Secret Invasion in the comics had the Skrulls being the enemies. But here in the MCU, they are the good guys working with S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.W.O.R.D. Well, formerly S.H.I.E.L.D. So they're on the good side. They're helping the allies, and there's a pact treaty now. And so what is going on here, and why is all this happening? Is it Secret Invasion, or are they alliance with Sword and Fury and the heroes and Avengers to face a bigger threat?
I'm with Josh in the chat. Galactus. I'm with Josh.
Yeah.
I think it's Galactus.
I think something's happening. And if it's not Galactus, my second guess will be Victor Doom, Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But all right, so let's talk about this. I was looking back. I was going through some researching. I was YouTubing. I was rabbit holing early this morning on this. So when did Fury become a Skrull, and when did Fury go cosmic? All right, so I was looking back, and I was going back through the films and all of his cameos. Of course, you rabbit hole. It's 4 hours later, and you're like, what? Your brain's melting. So I come to the conclusion. So Civil War, Winter Soldier, all of that was Fury, and you can tell it was him because he's a very commanding individual. He gave very intellectual information and data on how to be able to do this and how to do. You think about Avengers 1. He kind of led the show on the tactical warfare and let the Avengers do what they're supposed to do. All right, so Maria Hill never really contradicted him or talked down to him. She always followed the commands of Nick Fury. Okay, so I'm fast forwarding. So we got Avengers, we've got Civil War, we've got Winter Soldier, we're still going up. Then there's Age of Ultron. All right, Nick Fury dropped something in Age of Ultron that kind of is a huge clue, and we see this come to fruition in Captain Marvel. He's like, I never eat my grilled cheese cut diagonally. All right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a really interesting way that we know it's not Nick Fury. All right, let's fast forward to Captain Marvel. So that is the real Nick Fury, 1995.
Because he's in the 90s.
He's in the 90s. He's not he's still doing his thing. And, Winter Soldier and Civil War has not happened yet. All right, at some point around Age of Ultron, after that movie, I think Fury went cosmic, and he went out to start Sword. It's sometime around that way. So 95 was when the Skrulls came to Earth, according to the Marvel timeline.
Right.
If you fast forward up to Age of Ultron, the Avengers now are a unit, and Fury's, they're doing their own thing, and the Avengers are kicking butt and taking names, and Fury's really not needed on the Earth presence. Insert Talos. So now Talos becomes Fury, while Fury is out there doing something a lot more crazier that we don't even know about yet. Insert Phase 4. So you look at every film after Age of Ultron, and Fury has a more passive demeanor and tone. Yeah. He's more like, he's using verbal and dialogue in terms of like downplaying the situations and, that's not, we'll figure it out. We got this. We'll do it. And you look at that and you kind of know automatically that's not Fury.
Yeah.
You can figure it out.
I love it makes sense too, because the time that we saw him before Age of Ultron was when he got shot 3 times by the Winter Soldier. So maybe he takes that experience and says, you know what? Maybe I should be up there because my life is being threatened down here. So that makes a lot of sense. That's the moment he leaves. And then when we see him in Age of Ultron, maybe this is just speculation, but this makes a ton of sense. And why would they talk about the toast thing in Captain Marvel if it was not relevant in another movie? And it just so happens.
How did he have his toast in Age of Ultron?
He did it exactly how he said he would. There's no way that's just.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's not coincidence. And that's just the way Marvel Studios is. They're so integral on how they set up the small details. Yeah. And that's what I love about it. So we have, hopefully this has helped you guys understand. And I would encourage you guys to do your own research and follow the dialogue of Fury and Maria. And in Spider-Man Far From Home, if you will notice, hold on, in Spider-Man Far From Home, you will know that Maria Hill is actually interjecting Fury's plans and inserting her own prerogatives and attitudes. And if that was the real Fury, that would not be happening.
No, I picked up on that, definitely.
And he's said, when Captain Marvel, he said, do not invoke her name.
Do not invoke her name. Speaking of Captain Marvel, if you remember the cut scene, the end credit scene in that movie is whenever he pushes the pager button.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a Skrull, or was that real Fury? And did the Skrull blip, or did Fury blip?
Oh, as in, yeah. After.
Yeah. because
Infinity
he
War.
pushes the pager button to page Captain Marvel to come back to Earth, and then they both blip. Both he and Maria both go away.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring him back later. So is that imposter or legit? Did he come back to Earth?
That's a really good question.
Did he come back to Earth to page her? Like, was it in a safety deposit box in a bank somewhere?
Here's the thing: he could have came back to Earth multiple times. Like, I want to think it was him at Tony Stark's funeral.
yeah.
Like he came because that would just be like
that would make
okay,
sense.
He would want to be there, right? But here's another rumor that I heard online. I don't know, because we've never really learned anything about Maria Hill's character. She's kind of just been there and talked a little bit.
She's kind of like a nice little puppy.
I've been reading that she may have always been a Skrull. Like, there has never been a Maria Hill. Or there was one, but she died a long time because her character development has just not been there. So that would be crazy if that was true.
That would make sense.
And they spent a lot of time in Far From Home on developing that character.
They do, and this is the first time we've seen it, and she's a Skrull, so it's like,
yeah. So there's a lot of possibilities. So here's what I want to ask you guys. So if you are diving down this rabbit hole with us on PopX, I want to know what you guys think. Leave your comments and questions in below, whether you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or here on Get Vocal. I mean, we would love to hear what your thoughts are and just kind of collaborate everybody's ideas, because there's obviously a lot of stuff that you can dive into here when you talk about the Skrulls. Is it a secret invasion? Is Marvel setting up secret invasion? Or are they setting up their own form of a secret invasion, which is the invasion of Galactus? So we don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. And we may get some answers in the coming weeks at San Diego Comic-Con as Marvel brings out Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con with some guests that we don't even know yet.
Let's bring out that lineup, people.
Bring it out. So you know what? One thing you can rest assured on, you can tune in right here on PopXcast, and we'll be bringing you all that coverage and all that new geeky goodness as it's coming out. Absolutely. So, yeah, it's going to be great. And there's a lot of comments over here on the side about, Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer. I don't think we're going to see any of those properties in the MCU for about 4 or 5 years. Because I think there's going to be some time. Everybody's wanting it now, but it's not going to happen now. It's going to happen when Marvel fleshes out the characters. We get Guardians 3. We get Adam Warlock. Hopefully Keanu Reeves is Adam Warlock. But we get,
that would be pretty rocking.
Right. And so, there's some things that has to happen before the mutants and for Silver Surfer to come on the scene. You just can't start it out with like, oh, there's Silver Surfer. And that's not the way Marvel does it. Then you would be under the umbrella of DC Comics.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the way DC rolls.
That's right. Let's just throw it out there and see what sticks. So it's going to happen.
We can't just give those glasses to anybody.
I would say by 2024, we may probably be getting some pretty heavy hitters in terms of X-Men, Fantastic Four, Surfer, Galactus, and all that stuff. So you just gotta hang in there. All right. So all of that said, guys, my gosh, we went 20 minutes over on Spider-Man Far From Home. That's crazy.
Wow. I know. Wow.
That's insane. Well, it's been a fantastic show, and seriously, we can sit here and talk for another 45 minutes, but we don't want to bore you guys. But we are definitely going to be doing some pretty cool stuff coming up, especially after San Diego Comic-Con, so stay with us. Some big news is coming out this week, so hopefully we can report that to you guys as well. Alrighty, so Austin, you want to take us home, my friend?
All right, man. Huge movie, Far From Home, a lot more than we expected. So I'm Austin Burke at the Burkenair. You guys can go check out Joe and I's review when we first saw the movie, non-spoiler, but get our immediate hyped-up reactions. We are part of an amazing network called the Gonna Geek Network for all things even more geeky. Head over to GonnaGeek.com and check out some amazing podcasts on our home network, and you guys can connect with us on social media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, the Twits, and Pinterest, all at PopXcast. You guys can send comments and suggestions via email at popxcast@gmail.com. And for future and past shows, visit our official website, www.popxcast.com.
That's right. And I am Lindsay Badger, and you can find me at LR Badger on all the social places on the interwebs.
And Mike, are you still alive, Mike? Are you still over there, buddy?
Somebody check a pulse over there.
Can we get a reading on Mike Ippolito? Is he still alive? Hey, Mike.
Hey,
Mikey, what's up, buddy? How you doing? So, how can people find you on Twitter? Do you tweet? What's your deal anymore? Are you on MySpace still?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Did you get?
Probably
I think
trying to figure it out.
I think Mike got blipped. I think he got blipped towards the end there.
I think we didn't give our ratings. That's what I think.
Oh,
that's why we have Mike.
That's why we have you, Mike.
Me.
All right, so let's do this. All right,
I
let's.
think Mike's a scroll.
So I'm going to stick with my original rating that I gave in the theater. I'm going to go with an 8.4. Was that what I gave, Austin?
8.4.
Okay.
Yes, sir. On the dot.
All right.
I'll
Go ahead.
go next. I'm
Yep.
going to go 8.5. Just barely more.
Just barely one. All right, Lindsay Badger.
I'm gonna go for a solid 9.
9.
9.
And
9.
Mikey.
I'm going to go with a 9.3.
9.3. So we got about an average of about an 8.9 or 9.0 across the board on Team PopX.
great.
That's phenomenal. So I want to thank you guys so much for listening and for downloading and just being PopXers yourselves and helping us create some amazing shows. And I do want to give a quick shout out right quick to our friends over at Wirecast and Telestream, especially to Mr. Stephen Haywood. We love you, dude. And we just thank you so much for providing some amazing software that makes PopX run like a well-oiled machine. You are a man among men, sir. And we thank you so much. And we want to thank our friends over at Telestream and Wirecast for creating a product that is astounding.
It's super duper.
And I am Joseph Burke at Joseph Burke Arts, JosephBurkeArts, all over the interwebs. And of course, again, hats off to the amazing Team PopX and Mr. Mike Ippolito. It's good to have you back, buddy, and we've missed you. Ah, I love you. Does that mean Mike wants to go solo?
He wants to go solo.
Anyway, and so join us for next time in a couple of weeks. We'll be back on episode 99 as we are eagerly counting down episode 100 here on PopXcast. It's going to be phenomenal. I mean, just look at that beautiful, well, not that, but this right here. Look at that. So we're going to be counting it down.
Pretty.
It's so gorgeous. It's going to be good. So episode 100 is coming soon. August the 4th is the date for that. We'll be back with episode 99 as we talk about Stranger Things Season 3. Ooh,
It's so good.
And
It's so good.
we'll be talking about Lion King as well. So join us back for episode 99 in 2 weeks. And guys, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for downloading and just being amazing, amazing listeners. From all of us here at PopXcast, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. From everyone at PopXcast, thanks for listening. Please make sure to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/PopXcast, and click the follow button to get our live stream notifications. Drop us an email, popxcast@gmail.com. Be sure to check out this and more great content on the Gonna Geek Network at GonnaGeek.com. Get your geek on!